All right, let's take you to this now. The ANC is hosting the Liberation Movement Summit that gets underway today in Kempton Park. The summit is being held under the theme Defending Liberation Gains, Advancing Integrated Socio-Economic Development, Strengthening Solidarity for a Better Africa. For more on this, let's now cross to our reporter Khayelihle Khumalo, who is live for us in Kempton Park. Khaya, very good afternoon to you. So earlier, of course, you spoke to the ANC's Lindiwe Zulu in the previous hour. Just speak to us about what we can then expect there, especially given the anticipation around the reflections that will be held during the summit.
Well, absolutely, Nati. What is very important in this regard is that you're going to have the former liberation movements really having an opportunity to have frank discussions on a number of issues, whether it's about economy, whether it's about issues of trade, issues around migration. But most importantly, we know that these are the parties really that they've always been together. These are cadres who have really worked together in so many areas. You're looking at the days in exile when the African National Congress was based in so many countries, its headquarters in Zambia, having the military camps in countries like Angola, and the MPLA is here. But really to look at the significance and really the importance of this occasion, we're joined by the ANC National Spokesperson, Ms. Bengu. So once again, ma'am, thank you so much for this particular time. Let's talk about the importance of this. I mean, these are fraternal parties for the ANC. You've been in the struggle together, and now you're facing totally different challenges.
Absolutely. It would seem that the contemporary challenges tend to also come in the way of reflecting on the past to establish how far have we gone to ensure full emancipation of the historically oppressed people. And full emancipation, of course, must include economic emancipation. And therefore, the work is not done. Rights have been secured in many of these countries. There are democracies. People have universal suffrage. People are operating under international law as well as their own countries' constitutions. So a number of freedoms are now enshrined, not just in South Africa. And so it's important to establish how far we are with achieving that historical mission that joined all of these parties, as sister parties, as liberation movements. We also dispute the notion that they are former liberation movements. We continue to refer to the ANC, for example, as a liberation movement, and there are reasons why South Africans gave this name, this title of a movement. We're the only political party that is called a movement. There is a reason to it, and the history can be placed in history, the reason, but also should be placed in how we aim to tackle the future challenges to ensure, for example, that there is shared prosperity among our people, that we overcome inequality, and we attack the stubborn challenge of poverty, and we address issues of employment. To look forward to those things aggressively, we ought not to forget the role that has been travelled.
Ms. Bengu, obviously still on the note of challenges, we look at the current challenges that are so pervasive, the issue of electoral defeat. We saw in Botswana, the BDP. We saw here in South Africa, the ANC losing its majority. We saw in Mozambique, the disputed elections, but albeit now calm has been restored. Do you think this is a time to find that essential point in terms of reconnecting with the electorate, in terms of making sure that services are brought to the people so that they're not so dissatisfied?
No, absolutely. One of the challenges of the current and present moment is really to go back to the electorate, is to go back to our people, individually as well as communities, is to be able to appeal to different strata in society. That process of resetting liberation movements will not succeed without a frank self-reflection exercise at the summit and beyond. And of course, South Africa currently holds the chairship of this summit. Later in the year, that will be handed over on a rotating basis to another liberation movement. But we remain committed to ensure that the historical ideals that saw our forebears and our forefathers establishing organizations and forming organizations and movements such as the African National Congress, the MPLA in Angola, Frelimo in Mozambique. We just spoke about Namibia. You know, when we speak about some of those electoral setbacks, we should also look at some of the good things that are happening among liberation movements. SWAPO Party was already predicted to be defeated. A free and fair election was declared in Namibia, seeing an installation and election of the first woman president. We've seen some of the strides that are being led by President Nandi in Namibia in the direction of economic emancipation, in the direction of ensuring that the mineral resources of Namibia, they are enjoyed by the people of Namibia, addressing the land question. And that is why liberation movements must continue to exist. There isn't any political party that is capable of doing the things I'm talking about if their narrative is not located in liberating our people and talking about our people and not just the people. And we not claim our people. They are our people because that's the language that our forebears, such as President Tambo, always utilized that formulation. So we need to reconnect with our people. We urge all leaders that are in governing parties to also treat our people, the electorate, with as much humility, as much diligence, and accountability as possible. So we will be a frank self-reflection. There are challenges, there's no doubt about that, but we know that there is still rationale for continuing this work into the future until economic emancipation has been achieved, until stubborn challenges such as land redistribution has been achieved, and an inclusive economic growth has been achieved. Then that is when you can then say, 30 years later, 50 years later, South Africa is much better than it was when it was inherited in 1994. And infrastructure backlogs that we experienced, I just want to use that example. The infrastructure development in South Africa and maintenance of infrastructure, the difficulties that are being experienced in that regard. We also forget that the infrastructure was designed for a very small minority. And therefore, that is why in passing the budget recently, there was emphasis on infrastructure development so that we can then get these capital projects that have got a job creation potential. So there's a lot of work that must be done with speed, and we must continue. The ANC is quite confident of its comeback. You would have seen some of the by-elections, even when we snatched awards from that did not belong to the African National Congress. And so our work continues.
Will they talk about Western Sahara?
At the summit, without a doubt, there is a chance that Western Sahara will also be represented because we also have other observers and other guests that are going to be participating. The matter of Western Sahara cannot be postponed, just as the matter of genocide in Gaza that is led by Israel cannot be postponed in discussions of this nature.
All right, ma'am, thank you so much for your time. Of course, that's the ANC national spokesperson, Ms. Beng. We're talking about some of the pertinent issues, Unati, that will dominate the discussion. So it's quite a plethora of issues, as you know, that those liberation movements from the ANC in South Africa, ZANU-PF from Zimbabwe, SABC in Namibia, MPLA from Angola, and many others as well. So with that, back to you in studio.
All right, Khaya, thank you so much for that. Of course, that was Khayelihle Khumalo in conversation there with the ANC national spokesperson, Mahlengi Bengu Mutsiri.